Fine. So we can start with this new topic in the absorption by root, that is turgidity and flaccidity. To some extent, we had already looked at what turgidity refers to or what flaccidity refers to, but in general, the mechanism is not studied yet.
Sachin, so
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but at the end of last class, weren't we going to discuss the osmosis confusion? And you said we would discuss it.
Endo-osmosis and all that.
Sorry, what was it? Please remind me again.
I think maybe Tanisha had asked something about whether osmosis is from higher concentration to lower concentration because the PPTs and textbooks were apparently contradicting themselves or whatever.
Okay, yeah,
That's it.
I got it. Yes, yes. Let's do that first. Good, thank you. Um, oh, so. Okay, so let's assume again this is a kind of a vessel which is having a semi-permeable membrane or selectively permeable membrane. Now, because I'm going to talk about diffusion and osmosis in the same thing, I am saying it a selectively permeable membrane. So, again, for general reference, let's say we have water level on both sides up to this much. Consider they are equal. They do like equal. So let's assume both of these are equal shapers, and each sorry there are certain solute molecules on both sides, right? Equal volume of water, equal number of solute molecules, isotonic solutions. For general reference, I am labeling this as A compartment, this as B compartment. Yeah, B chamber within the same system, just separated by a membrane. So now, let's say in this case, I add a little more solute. Right? Solute is higher, so this will have high solute. Comparatively, this is having less solute. Right? Now, in earlier example, I had told you percentage wise, if you calculate, this will have less percentage of water because total number of molecules in this case will be, let's say the water molecules are 100. Out of 100, the 9 molecules, not out of 100. Apart from 100 molecules, there are 9 molecules of solute, right? And these 9 molecules plus 100 molecules makes 109. 109, out of 109, there are 100 molecules. So a percentage will be less compared to 106 molecules in 100. So the concentration of water here is 100 out of 109, and in this case it will be 100 out of 106, right? This number will be bigger, right? Whatever after division that you get, sorry, this number will be smaller, this number will be bigger. So now why I am telling you this is to tell you the solvent concentration in this compartment will be more. So that is high solvent. Here it will be less solvent. Again, we are not talking of the individual volumes, we are talking in comparison. Is this concept clear to everyone, or does anyone have any doubt there? If that is understood, then I can move forward.
So
Yes.
I didn't understand the 109 and 106.
Okay. So what I said was In both the chambers, chamber A and chamber B, there are 100 molecules each, right? In chamber A, there are 9 molecules of solute. In chamber B, there are 6 molecules of solute. So, out of these, when we calculate the volume of water per molecule of solute, that is the relative volume of the or relative molecules of the water. In this case, they are 100 divided by 109, right? So when you divide by a bigger number, the answer that you get is smaller value compared to the same number divided by a smaller number. The answer will be bigger value. So when you compare these two, this number is bigger, right? So relative volume of solvent in total system will be higher solvent or more solvent. Like you can simply imagine, out of 106 here, there are 100 molecules, and out of 109 here, there are 100 molecules. So obviously here water is little more compared to this system. And again, I'm not talking just the actual volumes, but the relative volumes. So when we talk of this situation, that is less solute, high solvent, high solute, less solvent, right? In other words, is that clear? I guess it was Meher, right?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear or still not clear?
So 109 is basically the number of solids present in the liquid.
Numbers are just given to you for reference. Have you understood conceptually why there has to be relatively less volume of water here or solvent here, and why there has to be more volume here?
Yeah.
Then perfect. So, in other words, this is a concentrated solution, right? Why concentrated? Because higher number of solute in the same volume of water. Within 100 ml, let's say we have 9 grams, and here within 100 ml we have 6 grams or 6 molecules, whichever. And this is dilute. So that way. Now, if we are talking of diffusion process, it will happen from concentrated solution to dilute solution, right? So this will be your diffusion. So when we talk of diffusion, it is from concentrated solution to dilute solution. Or in other words, we can say from high solute concentration, high solute concentration, high solute to low solute, right? Less solute, right? Or in other scenario, what we can say, from less solvent side to high solvent side, right? Diffusion direction is always this. We are just interpreting in different terms, right? And then it will be less solvent to high solvent. Okay. I hope this is clear. Is it clear to everyone, or does anyone have any doubt there? Nandan, you are following, right?
No doubt.
Okay. And I hope Tanisha is listening as well. Okay, so this is about diffusion. Now, when we talk of osmosis, osmosis will happen in this direction, right? Now, like I said, in the same system, diffusion and osmosis does not happen together. Now, first system discarded, right? So now what we are having is actually a second system, and we are showing in the same system the diffusion. But rest of the things, they are same. So we again take another chamber. We take A and B compartment. Then we add 9 molecules or 9 grams of solute in the same volume, and in the other compartment. So this is a different system. Okay, but like I don't want to draw it again separately, so that's why I'm using the same. Now same parameters will there. That will be high solute on A compartment, less solvent in A compartment, and it is called as concentrate. B compartment will have less solute, high solvent and dilute. But diffuse osmosis is happening in reverse direction. Now, when I write these things for osmosis, so osmosis, right? Now, osmosis is happening. This was concentrated solution to dilute solution. That was this one. Osmosis is happening from dilute to concentrate. So, dilute solution to concentrated solution. Now you will see the difference in all these things. Again, osmosis is happening from less solute to high solute. So less solute to high solute. And in third place, again the osmosis is happening from high solvent to less solvent. High solvent to less solvent. Now, most important thing and the last thing, when we talk of concentration gradient, we usually refer to solute, right? But if we say concentration gradient of solvent, specifically mention it, then the scenario changes. How? I will tell you. Now, diffusion is happening from high solute to less solute. That is along the concentration gradient, right? And now if we look here, osmosis is happening against the concentration gradient of the solute, but of the solvent concentration gradient is the same. That is from high to low. So for solvent, the context of concentration gradient is whether with respect to the solute or with respect to solvent. Diffusion is the concentration gradient with respect to solute. Osmosis is the concentration gradient with respect to solvent. Yeah, and if we look at the other parameter, diffusion is against the concentration gradient of the solvent. That is less to high. So from lower concentration of the solvent, it is moving to higher concentration of the solvent. And if we talk of the solute in osmosis, it is happening against the concentration gradient again, because it is less solute to high solute. So depending on what is the context that we are referring to, which concentration gradient, these will be the parameters that we have to understand. Tanisha, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Everyone else, are you following all of it, or are there any doubts still? Jamli?
Yeah, clear.
Okay, so this is the scenario, but let me also tell you, when we speak of concentration gradient, like without mentioning any solute or any solvent, it usually refers to solute. That is whatever you are adding to solute likes, right? That is the normal concentration gradient. Until and unless it is specifically mentioned that a concentration gradient of solvent, then only you should think of solvent concentration gradient. Otherwise, let's say a simple example is given that diffusion is happening across the concentration gradient, full stop. That means it is happening across the concentration gradient of solute. So if there is no word mentioned with the concentration gradient, it has to be of the solute. Then there has to be no distinction at all. Okay. If you want, you can actually write this down, because this is going to be helpful later in, like, except this, you will have to draw two diagrams, one for diffusion and the second one for osmosis. And those who want, they can even take this screenshot so that they can have it for later. Okay, so that was the quick revision of osmosis and diffusion thing. So let me go back to the slides. Perfect. So now coming back to the turgidity and flaccidity. So in general, we might revise few things that we have already seen earlier. So every living cell directly or indirectly is in contact with fluid. Now, why we have to study turgidity and flaccidity? These lines are establishing the background of it, right? Because every other cell in our body or in the animal cells or in plant cells, they are in contact with some or the other fluid. And the root hair, in case of plant, they are surrounded by the soil water. So that means there will always be a question of whether turgidity or flaccidity, depending on the concentration of water present. Now, all such cells which are in contact with water, they are subjected to osmosis, that is the movement of water across the membrane, and water continues to enter as long as the cell sap is more concentrated. If you remember, cell sap was referring to the content of the vacuole and the content of the cytoplasm. So whatever concentration of proteins, ions, minerals is there within the cytoplasm and within the vacuole of the plant cell, that is called as cell sap. So osmosis will continue as long as the cell sap is more concentrated. Remember, osmosis happens from less concentrated to more concentrated solute direction, right? Or of high solvent concentration to low solvent concentration. So that way it will matter. In this case, they are specifically referring to cell sap, which is nothing but the solute. That is some molecules or some minerals, which is ultimately the solute. So the osmosis will keep on happening from outside of the root into the inside of the root, that is from soil to the root cells or inside of the root cell, which has more concentrated cell sap than the surrounding fluids, or that is the soil, which is ultimately they are referring. Now, when a cell reaches a state where it cannot accommodate any more water, now, like in general, statement, if I have to say, there will be no more place for water to get filled in anymore, right? So when a cell reaches a state where it cannot accommodate any more of water, that is, it is fully distended, it is called as turgid, and the condition is called as turgidity. Now, when a turgid cell, its wall is stretched under pressure from inside. Obviously, when you are filling it to its complete distension, that is from inside, it is completely stretching. It's simple thing like when you eat lot of food, your stomach is almost kind of coming out. So that way, that is distension or stretching from inside. So when a cell is turgid, its wall is stretched under a pressure from inside, and in turn it will press the cell content towards the center of the cell, right? Obviously there will be cytoplasm, cell organelle, nucleus, and so on. So when the cell wall like when the pressure from inside is pushing the walls outside, there will be some pressure which will be pushing the content of the cells towards the center of the cell, right? So that way it is exerting the pressure on the wall, but also exerting the pressure towards the center. And the pressure of the cell content on the cell wall, that is from center towards the cell wall, is called as Turgor pressure. So the pressure on the wall is called as Turgor pressure, and the pressure exerted by the cell wall on the cell content in return is called as wall pressure, right? So from the center of the cell towards outside, there will be pressure exerted, that is Turgor pressure, and the opposite pressure which will be acting towards the cell content will be called as wall pressure. Okay, anyone has any doubt in these two concepts? Because this will be very, very important later to understand what exactly happens in plasmolysis and so on. Okay, so I assume this is clear to everyone. So that is the Turgor pressure from center towards the wall, that is on the cell wall structure, that is turgor pressure, and from the wall side in return towards the cell content, that is the wall pressure. Now if at any time the cell wall is unable to bear the turgor pressure, that means it is already distended or it to its complete maximum capacity, and it cannot take care of any more turgor pressure. It will rupture and the cell contents will burst out. Now, this particular phenomena actually you would have seen in some cases. Like for example, if you have seen custard apple, right? And if you let it hang on the tree till it is completely ripened, sometimes it breaks open. That is because the turgor pressure inside the cells of the custard apple, they are fully distended and they cannot accommodate any more water, but still the water will keep coming to the fruit from the plant or from that particular tree, and it will break open at certain point where you see those hump like things, they will just separate from each other. So that is one example of turgor pressure only. Now when turgid, the cell is in somewhat balanced state. Now up to its maximum capacity, not beyond the capacity. So when the cell is in turgid state, it is in somewhat balanced state and no more water is entering or leaving it, right? That is what is balanced. So it is allowing no more water to come inside or no, not even the water to go outside. So that is what is balanced state of turgidity. Now its turgor pressure will counterbalance the wall pressure, that is the maximum balance. So when both of these balance, like the pressure which is put on the wall and the back pressure which is put on the cell content, if when both of these are balancing, that's when the cell will remain in its normal turgid state. And therefore, it is no further absorption of water, even though the concentration of solute inside the cell may be greater than the outside. So in this balanced state, even if you put more solute concentration inside the cell or outside the cell, the movement will not happen because the pressure is balancing the movement of water at the end. So for example, the diagram is given here. Now osmotic pressure, we all know that due to which the osmosis happens, that is the osmotic pressure, that is the pressure exerted by the concentration gradient of the solute as well as the solvent. So the movement of the water will happen. In this case, this is the endo-osmosis movement that is being shown here, because we are going to talk about turgidity. When flaccidity we will talk, the osmosis will happen in the other direction, that is opposite to this. So this is endo-osmosis. So the water is moving inside. So the osmotic pressure direction is also inside. If you look at the turgor pressure, that is exerted on the wall by the presence of the water which is present inside the cell, and the wall pressure will be opposite force to the turgor pressure that is exerted on the cell content. So when we are talking of these three forces which are acting on a cell, and let's say the cell is in fully distended turgid state, that is maximum capacity, and it can no more accept water anymore. So in that case, this turgor pressure and this wall pressure, they will be exactly equal, that is they will be balancing with each other. And let's say if you add more salt concentration outside the cell, in that case the water will still not move outside, or if you add the more like solute concentration inside the cell, somehow if you increase it, in that case also there will be no net water movement at the end, because the turgor pressures and the wall pressure, they are balancing this turgid state of the cell. Okay, any question here? Anyone, any question? I hope you have understood this concept, because there have been so many questions being asked around these two concepts specifically, and the plasmolysis is third one, which is something similar. Okay, so then I assume in this case that you have understood everything here. Now the opposite case, that is of the flaccidity. So when a living cell, such as the cell of a leaf of aquatic plant, is placed in fresh water, it remains fully distended condition. That is obviously because if it is in presence of lot of water, the water will keep absorbing, keep getting absorbed within the leaf structure, because leaf will anyway have higher concentration of solute than the water source around that leaf, and its plasma membrane will remain in close contact with the cell wall and presses against, that is the turgid state. Now opposite to that is the flaccidity. So if the plant cell is now kept in 5% salt solution, this was kept in plain water, that is leaf is in aquatic of an aquatic plant, that means the water is just having no solute concentration, that is assumed. But in contrary, if the plant cell is kept in 5% salt solution, that is outside concentration is higher than the leaf cell or inside of the leaf cell, for few minutes, it will lose its distended appearance and the cytoplasm will shrink and the plasma membrane will withdraw the cell wall. So that is again a very obvious thing. The water will start moving from lower concentration of solute to higher concentration of solute, that is from dilute solution to concentrated solution. In this case, we are adding the cell in the 5% salt solution, so that is like quite high concentration outside the cell. So water from inside where the dilute solution is there will start moving to the outside of the cell towards this 5% salt solution side, and that way this it will lead to the shrinkage of the cell or shrinkage of the cytoplasm, and plasma membrane will withdraw it from cell wall. So earlier when the turgidity was established, plasma membrane was pressing on the cell wall on from all the sides. Now once we put the same cell in the 5% salt solution, plasma membrane will withdraw itself from the cell wall and it will start shrinking towards the cell content. This shrinkage from the cell wall is called as plasmolysis. Plasmo refers to the plasma membrane. Lysis refers to kind of breakdown. But in this case, there is no breakdown of the plasma membrane as such, but it is just moving away from the cell wall. So that bond is kind of broken, not bond as in like literally a chemical or physical bond, but whenever they were together, the cell wall and the cell membrane or plasma membrane, they were together, they are moving apart. That is what is referring to as plasmolysis. And the cells in this state, they are said to be flaccid. So that is obviously shrinkage of the cell membrane or plasma membrane, or in general the cell, that is called as flaccid condition. Flaccid cell, and the condition is called as flaccidity. And flaccidity is obviously the reverse of turgidity. Okay. Again, any questions here? I hope you have followed this particular part as well. If anyone has any question, can quickly ask me. Okay, so no question. Now, if the plasmolyzed cell, plasmolyzed again a flaccid cell, is returned to water before it is dead, right? Now cell is shrunk, shrunken a bit, and you are adding that flaccid cell into the water again, right? So that means you are trying to restore its turgidity. So its protoplasm will again swell up, pressing tight against the cell wall. So the plasma membrane will again push, get more water. Plasma membrane will push the itself to on the cell wall, and that will be the recovery or reversal of the plasmolysis, which is nothing but the deplasmolysis, which is nothing but the turgidity. Yeah. So plasmolysis is flaccidity. Deplasmolysis is breaking of that plasmolysis, that is nothing but the regaining turgidity, or it is also called as deplasmolysis. So here is the stages which are shown of the plasmolysis. When you keep this cell inside the higher concentration of the solute, let's say 5% salt concentration, it will slowly start losing water from inside. So in that case, if you see this, plasma membrane is kind of detaching itself from the cell wall. Otherwise, it was very close to the cell wall. Once it detaches, it will go to this stage, that is again further more detachment, and finally it will shrink to its lowest possible stage, depending on how much is the concentration gradient from outside to inside and so on. But this particular cell, it will be called as plasmolized cell. So that is just the physical representation how the cell undergoes plasmolysis in, and what are the stages involved. Nothing but the like detachment of the plasma membrane from the cell wall, and then further shrinkage to its lowest possible size. So that is the stages of plasmolysis. This is the actual scenario that is being shown here. Now, if you look at these cells, when you are adding 20% sucrose, that is again higher concentration outside the cell, you can see the cell being kind of shrinking. So the water is moving out of the cell, and these structures that you see, which are shown in green, I suppose they are chloroplast structures. So they are coming close to each other. So that means this cell is shrinking. Now, when you add the distilled water to this cell, the same cell, you pick it up and add it in distilled water, the cell will regain its turgidity. So this was turgid cell. When you add higher concentration of the solute outside the cell, it becomes flaccid, or it will undergo plasmolysis. And from plasmolyzed cell, when you add again into the water, it will go into turgid state again. So that is just the quick representation of how the situations can change based on what solution you are using. So again, if you remember, one of the quiz question that we saw at the end was that 20% sugar solution to distilled water and so on. So that way you will clearly see the difference between plasmolysis and the turgid or flaccidity of the cell. Okay, again, any question in these two diagrams? Anyone? Gia? Miss Gia?
No, sir.
So concepts are clear then. Bhavya? Bhavya? Okay, I can't hear you, but I saw some response. Fine. So that is the turgidity and flaccidity. Now, if you just have to define these three things in terms like that was the description. And when a question is like define turgidity, then you surely can't write that description. So here is the definition. Turgidity is the state of a cell in which the cell wall is rigid or distended and stretched by an increased volume of vacuoles. Why is the increased volume of vacuole? Because water is present inside due to the endoosmosis process. That is the due to the absorption of water, and the cell is said to be a turgid, and the state or the condition of that cell is called as turgidity. Cell is turgid, condition is turgidity. Similarly, plasmolysis is the contraction of the cytoplasm or of the plasma membrane from the cell wall due to its withdrawal of water when placed in a concentrated solution, that is placed in a hypertonic solution, that is outside the cell. So that is plasmolysis. Flaccidity is the condition of the cell in which the cell content is shrunken and the cell is no more tight, and that cell is said to be a flaccid, and the condition is called as flaccidity. So these are just the definition for your reference whenever you have to write. Now, why is this turgidity important? Why are we even studying it? Right? We know quite a few phenomena that happens inside the plant, but we don't know if they are because of the turgidity and so on. So here they are in terms of importance of turgidity. First and most important function of turgidity is closing and opening of the stomata. Now we had briefly discussed about the stomata, what they are. I guess I have a diagram of stomata somewhere. Yeah, here it is, right? So usually, now a leaf has different layers of cell. If you take a section of the leaf, let's say if this is the leaf, my palm, and if you just take a thin slice at the center, that will be leaf structure. So on upper side of the leaf and on the lower side of the leaf, there will be epidermal cell. That is the outermost layer of the leaf, and that epidermis, especially on the lower epidermal side, you will find this stomata-like structure which are there. Now, these stomata, they are made up of two guard cells. What you see here is the guard cell. So, these kidney bean shaped cells, they are called as guard cells. So, when they are in turgid state, that is when they are swollen completely, and when they have a lot of water inside, they will create this opening at the center, and that is nothing but your stoma or stomata. And when they are in flaccid state, that is when they are shrunken, obviously their walls are little loose and the stomata or stoma will be closed. So that is the closing and opening of the stomata, which is regulated by the turgidity of the guard cells. So when the guard cells, they are turgid, the stomata is open, the transpiration of water can happen, or the exchange of gases can happen, that is carbon dioxide can come inside the leaf cells. If the flaccidity of this turgid, if the guard cells, they are in flaccid situation, then the stomata will be closed. There will not be any transpiration happening, neither the exchange of gases will be happening in that case. So that is where this closing and opening of the stomata is very, very important. Turgidity is also very significant for plants as well as bacteria. It results in bursting of the cell. It saves the plants from the it saves the plants from infection. It's not from the flaccid. It saves the plant from infection. So what does this mean is, now let's say if the bacteria are present, let's say a plant tissue is infected by bacteria, so bacteria will also be present. Water is going to come inside and water will enter the bacteria, right? And bacterial cell wall will not have, or the outermost membrane of the bacteria will not have any control over the turbidity, and the water will keep coming inside, because of that the bacteria will burst, like that is what is bursting of a cell, and it will ultimately prevent the infection from happening. So that way bacteria will get killed within the plant itself. Now you might wonder then why it doesn't happen in all the other cases also, because there the type of the cell, the amount of water, the concentration of solute, all these things matters a lot. In plant they have continuous inflow of water. That is not the case with animals. Otherwise with animal also that could have happened. So that is the importance of turbidity in terms of closing and opening of the stomata, and also protecting the plant from the bacterial infection. Second importance of turbidity is growth of cells. Now these cells, they enlarge in what is this word? Okay, something wrong here. Surely it doesn't mean that plum. It's something else totally. So cells will enlarge due to turbidity, and because of that turbidity, it will help in the movement of nutrient solution. Now, whole of the diffusion, whole of the osmosis, or plasmolysis, deplasmolysis, all of these phenomena that which are happening inside the plant cell, they are happening because of the solute concentration and the solvent concentration, that is water as well as minerals. Now, because of these different situations of the cell, especially of the turbidity to flaccidity, the nutrient solutions, they will move from cell to cell, and that way the cell will keep becoming turgid or flaccid depending on whatever concentration is present inside. And this is because of the dissimilarity in the attentiveness of the cells are. So again, from outside of the root hair to inside of the root hair, within the different regions of the root, or within the different regions or different cells of the stem and of the leaf, the concentration of the cells are, that is the inner content of the cell, will be different. And because of that, the movement of water will keep happening, the movement of solute or minerals will keep happening. So that's one of the important factor for growth of the cell. If the cell is getting more and more nutrition, that means it will keep growing. If it is not getting nutrition, it will not grow. So this moment of turbidity and flaccidity, it is very, very important for the growth of the cells. Third point is the dispersion of the seeds or spores. Now, this is one of the very interesting phenomena again. Many of the fruits or sporangia, they swell up. You might have seen some feather, like that round feathery structure which flies in the air sometimes, right? That is one of the seed of one particular plant called as datura or dhatura, right? In Marathi it is called as datura. In English it is datura, datura strontium. That is the name of the plant. It has that what is this unripe mango like shape, and when it will burst open, it will release those feathery round balls, and they will carry seeds along with it. So something like that. So many fruits or sporangia is nothing but the spore containing structure, right? So many fruits, sporangia specifically is present in the fungi as well. So these fruits as well as the sporangia structure, they swell up by absorption of water, and they will split up due to there is too much of the water. Like I even gave an example of custard apple. Too much of water inside will actually cause the bursting of the custard apple. Something similar, if there are fruits or if there are other sporangia like structure, they will take in water and it will ultimately burst open. So ultimately the seeds from the fruit or the spores, they will get dispersed. And it is essential for the development of the dissimilar organs. Dissimilar organs in the sense, like it is required for the breaking up of that, whether it's a sporangia or whether it's a fruit. In those cases, it is required, and that way the dispersion, that is spreading of the seeds or spores, does happen as well. Usually what happens is when the seeds are formed, they fall at the same place. But because of this particular phenomena of turbidity or swelling up of the fruits and then bursting it up, they kind of spread across. So that way, this is one of the important phenomena due to the turbidity. And I guess we will see this one and then we will stop. The next importance we will see in the next classes. So giving the mechanical support. Now, what did I write? This is so wrong. It is not moat for sure. Most of the aquatic.
You can also attend our English class. We don't have to come.
Sorry.
You can also attend our English class. No issues.
Why?
You only making so many mistakes. That's why.
Oh, that way. No, that these are typos. So I usually check my presentation second time, but this time I didn't for some reason. But yeah, that's okay. And thank you for that offer. So giving mechanical support, most of these aquatic plant, they get rigidity only because of the turgid phenomena or turgidity phenomena. Right now, obviously, they are aquatic plants. Cell sap will have higher concentration. Outside in the water body will have less concentration of solute. So water will move from outside of the plant cell to the inside of the plant cell, and the cells will become turgid. Now, what happens because of that? The water pressure inside the plant cell is called turgor pressure, obviously, and is maintained by the procedure osmosis. This will lead to keep the plant in upright and rigid position, because all these cells within a particular stem or a branch, they will be exerting pressure on the outer walls of the cell wall or of the plasma membrane, and because of that it is like kind of stuffing inside. So let's say you have a kind of a bag, like an elongated cylindrical bag, and if you keep stuffing the cloths inside, it becomes like a hard rod like structure. Some similar phenomena happens here as well. So whenever a stem of these aquatic plants, they have all the turgid cells, it is creating that erect stem inside due to the turbidity of those cells, and that is the way it gives the mechanical support to those aquatic plant. And this is not only the case with the aquatic plant, but also with the regular trees that you see around us. They also get mechanical support because of the turbidity of the cell, and over the time they like obviously develop that xylem and phloem and then the sclerenchyma like tissue, which adds up to their mechanical strength later. But turbidity is one of the major phenomena which is giving mechanical support to the plants. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask, but as of now I will stop here.